For the last 20 years, RuneScape has given players the opportunity to do basically whatever you want in the massive world of Gelinor. From things like killing monsters, chopping your life away at trees, and even burning down your mother-in-law's house. Anyways, as I was saying, here in Gelinor, you can basically do whatever you want. But does that mean you should hop into this expansive world today in 2023? In this video, we're gonna go over 5 main topics to see if you should start playing RuneScape. Number 1, what is RuneScape? Number 2, why are there 2 of them? Number 3, which one is right for me? Number 4, what Oldschool Runescape offers players today? And number 5, what RuneScape 3 offers players today. I'll have all of these timestamped in the description as well, so if you want to, you can skip ahead and decide that one of the games just isn't for you. So, to start, what is RuneScape? In short, RuneScape was created in 1998 by Andrew, Paul, and Ian Gower. The original version of RuneScape was originally called Devious Mud, however, it was shortly thereafter changed to RuneScape when the game went public. After the game went public, you have what is being shown before you today, with the birth of Jagex. This is known as RuneScape Classic, and honestly, not too much is known about it today due to the game's infancy. For a few years, from the public release in 2001 to 2006, this is what RuneScape looked like. But the Gower brothers had something way up their sleeve. This is when in May of 2006, RuneScape had its first major overhaul to what players consider RuneScape 2. If you had a computer in the mid-2000s and played video games, you've probably just been taken back by nostalgia. This is the era most consider to be RuneScape Gold, with enhanced 3D visuals, a classic combat system, and music to die for. This is what people consider to be RuneScape in its purest form. And for the next 7 glorious years, RuneScape would be visually enhanced, new quests would be added, and new monsters would be introduced to the game. Then, on May 11th of 2013, news would become public about a new RuneScape update that shook the community. The evolution of combat. This would turn out to be Jagex's most controversial update ever, and still is to this day. Nonetheless, the Evolution of Combat update would then be in beta for the next 6 months until its final release on November 20th, 2012. This update would heavily impact the player base of RuneScape, permanently affecting its player count. However, good news was soon to come, but we'll get back to that later. RuneScape would then go on to enhance and improve the Evolution of Combat to the state that it's in currently, with the inclusion of more abilities, different balancing of said abilities, new bosses that had more mechanics, and even new areas. RuneScape today, even now, is still being updated weekly, also including a new skill set to release on August 7th of this year. So, now we know all about what RuneScape is. Now, let's answer the next question. Why are there 2 of them? Well, if you remember back in 2012, Evolution of Combat was a huge hit to the community. The drastic change to the combat system had pushed away something near 50% of its player base. Not only was this more than likely a huge financial burden, but knowing that the game's population had been nearly cut in half, something had to be done. And done something had been. In February of 2013, Jagex had a huge breakthrough. One of the employees of Jagex, Maud Phillip, had scoured through an old safe, and had come across an original snapshot of RuneScape as it was on August 10th, 2007. Therefore, going forward, RuneScape was to be split into two separate games, Oldschool Runescape and RuneScape 3. So now you know the backstory of RuneScape and its split between games. Now on to the giant question at hand. Which RuneScape is right for you? Now if we're being honest, this is a highly complicated and subjective opinion. Because of this, we're going to go ahead and figure out what makes each game unique and wrap around to this at the end of the video. So now, what does Oldschool Runescape offer players today? Inherently, Oldschool Runescape is really just a historic version of RuneScape. This being said, playing Oldschool Runescape will consequently give you an amazing feeling of nostalgia every time you play it. But don't think that's all. Since Oldschool Runescape's release back in 2013, Jagex has made some major changes overall to the game. This includes things like raids, new bosses, new ways to train, and even new areas to explore. Some raids you can look forward to playing in modern Oldschool Runescape are things like Chambers of Xeric, Theater of Blood, and even Tomb of a Masket. But hold on, don't get too excited just yet. Though these raids sound amazingly fun, I will admit that they are all very advanced areas to reach. This means that you will have to build up all of your skills in game, all of your gear, and knowledge of everything before you even go to attempt these. So, sorry, you'll just have to wait for raids. However, like I said, there are other things that have been added to Oldschool Runescape, such as new areas to this already expansive game. These places are as basic as simply the Grand Exchange, something that was already in RuneScape 3, but has decided to have been added to Oldschool Runescape. But other than that, there are some completely unique areas specific to Oldschool Runescape, such as Fossil Island, Versenaza, and the big one, Zaya. Along with these new areas, you have to have new bosses, right? Well, of course. A lot of these bosses are pretty unique to Oldschool Runescape. Some of these include Vorkoth, Bryophyta, Nightmare, and even Nex. But don't think all bosses are about killing and getting drops. There are also some bosses unique to Oldschool Runescape that are made completely for skill training, such as Wintertodt, Zolcano, and Temperos. Now, with all of this being said, another thing to note with Oldschool Runescape is the overall combat system is much more simple. You click and wait. That's it. I will say that you do have to worry about things such as prayer switching and overall swaps to your gear, but other than that, it's pretty simple. Now, let's switch gears and look at some of the things that RuneScape 3 offers to players over Oldschool Runescape. Inherently, RuneScape 3 is a much newer game than Oldschool Runescape. This being said, there are some quality of life features found in RuneScape 3 that aren't found in Oldschool Runescape, such as overall enhanced graphics, better inventory management along with bank management, customizable interfaces, the ability to use keybinds for just about anything, and even new skills. On top of all of these quality of life features, you also receive another 10 years of quests added to the game, more unique bosses, new areas to explore, and even item locations that make it easier to get around the whole of RuneScape even faster. Going along like we did in Oldschool Runescape, some of the bosses that were added into RuneScape 3 include bosses such as Karapak, Raksha, Araxor, and even Zamorak. Though these are all pretty much in-game bosses, so you'll need to go through the game just like you would in Oldschool Runescape. However, with your gameplay in mind, RuneScape 3 has a completely different XP system overall for combat, with higher XP rates to get you leveled up much faster. Continuing on, RuneScape 3 has a whole bunch of unique areas, such as the Ark, Anachronia, and Menaphos. Though with these new areas, you need to be able to get to them. Luckily for you, RuneScape 3 has a completely unique teleport system with areas in each town with things called lodestones. These lodestones allow you to teleport around the whole entire map of RuneScape without the use of runes or any cooldowns. And finally, RuneScape 3 has a load of new skills unique to its game, such as dungeoneering, summoning, invention, archaeology, and a new skill set to come out later this year, necromancy. So, with all of this taken in, what exactly does this mean for you? Well, circling back to our other question, which game is right for you? Here's what I think. If you enjoy a more slow-paced and grind-heavy experience, an overwhelming amount of nostalgia, and an overall more classic and true RuneScape experience, I would say that you should probably stick on old school RuneScape. There's plenty of content still being added to the game that we all know and love, and it's truly RuneScape in its purest form. However, if you do want a twist on a classic with faster gains, more advanced mechanics, a more customizable UI, and modern graphics, I would say that RuneScape 3 would suit you. Or be like me and just play both. There's nothing wrong with playing both. Your account can work interchangeably between both games. Now, with that being said, they are both completely different experiences when it comes to playing RuneScape. It's basically playing two completely separate games for the price of one every single month. With this being said, even though they are completely separate games, they do pretty much feed off the same idea.